I have a few of these things that you might all agree with or not at all. So, yeah.
Excellent. And also, if you think of great questions to ask, please dive in. We have discussed the fact that Nicolas might be sort of taking over as podcaster, so that's fine too.
Are you ready for this?
The one thing we might do as well is just a really quick, like 30-second elevator pitch to know who you are and how you're going to participate, because I realize not everyone has this before, so I'm going to assume that the people watching. the day. Thanks, guys. Sorry, a little bit late, but we're going to be diving into what VCs are looking for in Web3 projects. I'm not sure who is in the audience, but I'm going to assume that there's probably a lot of startups who have a dream, have something they want to build, and they're probably looking for funding. So it'll be very valuable information for them. So we've got Marc from Mechanism.
Hey.
Nicolas from Bitcraft.
GM.
Carra from A16Z. Or A16Z if you're not an Australian, and Brian from IVC, which I would spell out to Infinity Ventures Crypto, but we're going with IVC now, right?
Yes.
So quick elevator pitch from everyone, just in case you're not familiar with them and their funds. I'd love to get like maybe 30 seconds of who you are, what you do, and what your fund focuses on.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Marc Weinstein. I'm a partner at Mechanism Capital, and also our sub-entity Mechanism Play, which focuses entirely on gaming in the metaverse. I've been in crypto since 2017 full-time. Originally got interested in crypto because I was a finance, an economics person, and bought Bitcoin because I thought it was like digital gold. And then just got swept up into like the ICO mania of 2017, 2018, survived that bear market, and formed Mechanism Capital in August of 2020. We were originally focused on DeFi, but had a thesis that gaming was going to converge with DeFi to create, a new type of game. And we made a couple of investments in the seed round of YGG, Merit Circle on the guild side, Star Atlas on the game side, and a few others, and just decided to go all in on that space as well.
Super
Was
cool.
that short enough?
Yes, and I think, and if we're tallying bear markets, you've got at least one.
I've got one, and after the first Bitcoin purchase, Mt. Gox happened 3 months later. So technically that's two.
Okay.
But it was like a couple of years.
Lots.
Yeah.
All right.
Cool. My name is Nico, part of Bitcraft. Bitcraft is like, similar to what you guys are doing, but from the other angle. So originally we're a games, investor, very originally actually esports, then gaming. And so since last year, we also have a dedicated token fund. Myself, I've been in crypto full time also since 2017, building mostly on the financial side. And then 2 years ago, I decided to focus my efforts and attention on my other passion, which was games. And so I'm on the Bitcraft crypto team. We've invested in crypto unicorns and a bunch of other fascinating companies. Yeah, super happy to be here. And what was the question about the bear market?
Well, I was wondering if we could tally it up because, like a lot of people are going into their first bear market, their first crypto winter, and if you've been there before, it's kind of like, how it feels to go through it for the first time. I think maybe it's not going to last as long as it does. But I think some people who have done it before actually see opportunity in that downturn, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But so how many tallies have you got? How many crypto?
I would say, well, this would be then the second big one. Yeah,
okay.
Major one. Yeah.
All right. Veterans. Carra.
I'm Carra. I'm a partner at A16Z on the crypto fund. So just, I think many people are familiar with A16Z, but not how the firm is structured. I think we get this question a lot. We've got a bunch of different verticals, fintech, biotech, consumer, and the crypto fund is its own fund. We also have a games fund, which we work collaboratively with. They invest in all kinds of games, from Web2 to Web3. We invest in just crypto games. So we are super crypto native on the far end, but I think across all of our Web3 games, we still index most heavily on founders. So a lot of Web2 games that are coming into Web3, we've been equally excited about. So A16Z, the fund, has been investing in crypto since 2013, since the very earliest days of Coinbase. Because the crypto fund only invests in crypto, we've been able to be super committed throughout many different bear markets. This is my second. I got into crypto in 2017, but thankfully I have the legacy of the firm to learn from, and many of the people that I work with have been in it since the very beginning and since they were pariahs. Let's see, my own background. I have a background in math, computer science, and economics. I spent some time as a software engineer building AR/VR games for the HoloLens team at Microsoft. And then I spent some time as a product manager, working mostly with game developers in the App Store, but also sort of originally doing a little bit of marketplace design for the App Store. So super excited about virtual economies. I think that's sort of my main focus, and I love token economics.
Super cool. And Web3 native as well, I would say too. Like, I know a lot of people, it must be annoying because a lot of people focus on your age. You're obviously very young and very successful, but I would say Web3 native. Like, a lot of people are sort of coming from a legacy of thinking about Web2 and how to apply it to Web3, but you're coming into a new space with a brand new perspective, which I think is super interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I think I found crypto at about the same time as I was actually entering the financial system as like a functioning adult, which was still quite early relative to like other people, because I went to boarding school and sort of had to manage all this stuff on my own. And so for me, it was like going to pick out cereal from a grocery store. It's like you're looking at two things side by side. Like you look at this one's like calorie count, you look at this one's sugar content, and I was like, wow, crypto seems like the correct move. There was this nice dovetailing of timing in my own sort of career and personal life.
Love that.
Great. Hey guys, my name is Brian. I'm the general partner of Headline. We're a Web2 fund. I'm probably the most noob person here because I got into crypto 10 months ago. I also founded Infinity Venture Crypto, which is an offshoot of Headline. And YGG was our first investment. And because of that, we started to be more skewed towards games and GameFi. About 40% of our fund is in games and GameFi. The other 20% is in DeFi and FinTech. And the other 20% is in Web3, and the other 20% is in Metaverse. We also co-founded YGG SCA, which is the first sub-DAO of YGG. And now we are doing the newest one that YGG has, which is YGG Japan. Like I said, I'm very new in this space. We've been investing in Web2 side for about 5-6 years, but crypto, we jumped in really 10 months ago. So we're very new, and this is my first bear market.
All right.
Welcome.
That's great because you're
Thank you.
welcome. Enjoy the ride.
You'll be fine. Hang on.
Wow.
Getting a lot of white hair.
This is great, and we've only got like 25 minutes, so we've got a very short time frame. I want to start off by asking like a giant question that is kind of complex, but everyone who's watching wants to know what you're looking for, what you think the trends are, what's coming next. I kind of feel like a lot has happened, right, over the last 18 months. If we go back 12 months, I think we were in a crazy bull run, and there was a lot of FOMO, and a lot of VCs diving into gaming and crypto that have probably never been in that space before, probably just because number go up. But we're in a very different place now, and I'm wondering what you are looking for. I mean, we were talking about things around, well, let's just go back to the technology. What is it good for? Like, what should people be working on in terms of building? You're going through your first bear market. Like, are you thinking about opportunities, like recognizing that some of the funds that were so successful in the last bull run, they were investing in the deep, dark depths of the last crypto winter and on trends like NFTs that no one was talking about yet. So I know that's a lot, but I'm sure that you have thought about this in great depth. So what is it that you're looking for? And, what do you think is coming next? Like, how is it different now to say 12 months ago or even 24 months ago? Who wants to tackle it first?
I can go first on that. So I think, one reason why so many gaming investors missed Axie Infinity was because they played the game and they said, this is not fun. And they
still say that.
Yeah, and they still say that. And they basically wrote it off immediately. But, for Axie in particular, it was really one of the first Web3 games to gain, massive adoption. And so they missed that opportunity. But ultimately what we've seen is that, the economic model for some of these games needs to be kind of factored and refactored and reconsidered over time.
Yeah.
And, your cost to acquire a player needs to be lower than the lifetime value that player contributes to your game.
Yeah.
And so they were kind of wrong in that a Web3 game can take off because the kind of like crypto economic incentives are a game in and of themselves. So a lot of players were really excited about breeding and earning within this environment. And that's where the kind of play to earn came from. They were right in that in order to sustain longevity of a game, there needs to be more than just the Ponzi-nomics, as some people call it, within a Web3 game. And so what I'm excited about, and I think Carra kind of spoke to this as well, is like, we're seeing a lot of native gaming teams who have developed, you know, huge winners in the past, excited about Web3, excited about crypto, and, you know, potentially exploring new opportunities. And I'm hoping that within the next 12 months, we're going to see a number of games launch that are just inherently fun. And people want to come and play for entertainment. And if there's some kind of additional incremental economic model on top of it that they can earn through, then that's great, but that's not the core driver. The fundamental question we're asking internally, and just being honest, we don't know the answer, is does having those financial incentives within a game spoil the fun? And so we're kind of just playing around with that and investing in opportunities and founders that are taking different approaches to answer that question.
Yeah.
Let me add to that. For us, we've done 76 games over the last 10 months.
Investments in 76 games.
Yes, IBC has invested 76 games in 10 months. I myself was a gamer from mobile. I played a game called Game of War. I don't know if you guys heard of it. Game of War is the highest ARPU earning game ever in the history of Apple App Store and Google Play Store. I think it was around $4,000 per user that they were spending. I spent $750,000 in a year playing that game. By the time I was done with it, my account was worth, I think, $15,000 was what I could sell for.
Wow.
But if that was a Web3 game,
were you allowed to sell for it?
Yeah, I could. But I mean, there was breach. Of course, there was terms of service. I'm not allowed to, but people did it, just like in World of Warcraft. But if I was able to, if that was a Web3 game, and these are freemium games we're talking about. If it was a Web3 game, Jesus Christ, I would have probably made back my money in folds because I had so much gold, so much food, so much wood, so much materials to craft stuff with that people just didn't have out there that people couldn't afford. But I was spending so much, I could just sold that just to make back my money. And that's what's interesting for me moving forward, because you have people like come to us with Summoners Arena. You have Fun Plus with State of Survival. These are two big freemium game players that are jumping into the space right now. And these guys, their games are already proven to be fun to play, and people are spending money on it. And they're already porting these games over into Web3, and they're going to be doing it at the end of this year. So I think it's already happening. And if the same thing goes for Summoners Arena or State of Survival, whatever you have in there, if you can sell them, and there's actually an economy within that, it's going to be, people are going to spend even more money because you can actually potentially make money.
I want to say like two things. I think my hunch is that the right way to think about money in games is that it increases the stakes. But some people find poker to be very fun. Poker is an industry that, online poker, I think, is an industry that's worth multiple trillions of dollars.
Yeah.
The gaming industry is worth something on the order of what, 150 billion? And you know, the combined music and entertainment, like movie industries, are worth way less than $150 billion. And so just to give you a sense for scale of like who likes poker, and I think every game developer thinks about stakes anyway, right? Yeah. And so it's like a very careful balance. I also, the other thing I'd add is I think the causal evolution of game design and like financial business models is bidirectional. So I think certain base level technologies make it possible for certain kind of products to emerge, which makes different business models emerge. And so like, to make this concrete, is like the early internet made affiliate marketing possible. I would say, you know, microtransactions and in-app purchases made free-to-play possible. But the same goes in reverse. right? Free to play as a business model made these sort of, hyper casual games where, your attention is monetized and sort of, you want to sort of stay in the game as long as possible, right? Like that was like a bidirectional causal effect that changed the way game makers think about making the game in order to optimize for financials. So basically, just to bring this back to crypto, is I think the blockchain gives you fundamental properties that create possibilities for entirely new product experiences in the same way that distributed systems made the modern MMO possible, right? Thousands of CCU possible. And so I think blockchains will create certain products that will be probably fundamentally different from what we have today.
Yeah.
And those new products will create new business models and the reverse. And so like maybe one question for founders, and like I don't know the answer to this, is like, how do you use that business model to create more interesting and fun product experiences? The answer is probably not like straight poker. And the answer is probably not free to play, but with real money, right? I don't know what the answer is though.
Well, he's wearing a loot shirt.
Yeah.
Hey.
That's pretty good.
Well, you were just saying this around like, are we building something brand new? Like what is the actual parts of the technology that are important to games? Do we just chuck a blockchain layer on the top of existing games? Like, how do you see this?
So initially you said that you would love to have a bit of a debate here. So I'm going to kind of disagree with all of you.
Yes.
There we go. We got it. So we can start the jiu-jitsu arena here.
Yeah. It's fun.
So, I've come a bit of full circle about this. When I saw Axie Infinity skyrocket, I was like, holy crap, metaverse and the metaverse jobs are finally here. And so currently, what I'm thinking is, and this is more my opinion, like as a fund, we're looking at different things and we have each our own, little angle that we look at in the team. And so for me, I think there's a real chance that the financialization, which is what we've mostly been talking about, as blockchain adds an economic layer on top of virtual economies, right? It opens the economy to the outside. And so for me, there's a real risk from what I've seen right now is that the moment you do that with the game, speculators and earners are going to, jump on the assets, and their willingness to pay is going to always be higher than that of the people who actually want to play the game. And so, I think there's a real chance that any game that has existed until Web3 games will not work with an open economy in a fun way or in a sustainable way. Just because it will, the system will be gamed so much that the game won't be any fun to play anymore. So that's a hypothesis I can get behind. And so for that reason, I like to think about blockchain as a few things. So it's a way to ensure digital scarcity and to all agree on it. And so it adds a native value layer on top of the internet, which we can use to open up economies of games. But on top of that, it's also a way to prove ownership of assets, without anyone being able to dispute that. And so that is something that we can also start building interesting experiences around. And then finally, it's also something you can program. So it's like a programmable computer. And so what I'm these days most excited about is founders coming to me and they're using blockchain not so much as an economic layer around their game, but more as a way, as Carra said, to build experiences that you could not have existed without. So these could be, so we've now just invested in a company that is using the sense of, you can have an asset within a game, but because it's actually lives on the blockchain, you can take it out of the game onto the blockchain. And because you can actually do this, it makes the asset feel more real, feel more physical. And so they're using that to actually try to create digital toys. So it's something that you would have, on your nightstand, but because, and you couldn't have toys within the game because they were like, you couldn't take it out, but because you can now take it out, they're using the blockchain to make things feel more physical. And so this is, this is not the one use case, right? But this is a new way to start thinking about how we can use this technology to have new experiences in virtual worlds. And then, as an extent, and that is the far extreme, because Ethereum is a computer, something I'm interested in as well is games that actually have their complete state and logic live on top of the blockchain.
And it can be changed.
Exactly. And so, the possibilities here are endless, right? You're collaboratively building a game. So imagine you could have like a Minecraft improvement proposal where, you can actually create a new block in Minecraft, and whoever likes the block that you created can import it inside their game, and then can build new things. That's like a way to put it into Web2 terms, but this is the way I like to think about this stuff.
It's possible to create a game that lives on the blockchain and has no financialization. Like blockchains give you two things: composability and financialization. I think to date, like crypto games have over-indexed on financialization.
Definitely.
And composability, which I like to think of as like the ability to extend the state because you can read the state, creates really interesting new ways for people to play metagames. Like sort of one thing I've been thinking about recently is like, say you were to have a, fantasy sports league on chain where, sort of these like incredibly neutral simulations happen algorithmically on chain and you get certain outcomes. And say you have a DAO that has elected a general manager that allocates resources in a certain way for your team. Like say you've got another person who's like, no, I can manage better than this other manager. I'm going to run a simulation on the side that takes different inputs, but uses the same credibly neutral simulation. And I can prove at the end of the season that I'm a better manager. So now I'm going to have the DAO team vote him out, and I'm now the general manager of this team. I think that's novel and it's interesting, and it couldn't happen in the real world.
One other, that's both comments are super interesting, and I think we're trying to figure out, like what new game elements are enabled by having a game built on chain. Specifically, in addition to kind of like the straight economics. I would push back a little bit and say, to your point about removing the financialization, you're simultaneously commenting that ownership is important, and the ownership of that asset is part of an economy, and connecting the ownership of that asset outside of the game means that there's a price on that asset. So whether you like it or not, there's the second that you allow assets to leave the game, you have other participants in this metagame that are speculators, that are shillers, whatever you want to call them. And I think that in order to build a more complex economy, you have to just consider that those participants are going to come and adjust the frameworks within the game to try to make it continue to be enjoyable for the core players, but then also make the metagame, still playable for speculators, because they're going to come whether or not. One game that we invested in is called Consortium 9. And originally it was called Eternal Return, but the founder Brooks was like really adamantly against this idea that that blockchain-based games made any sense whatsoever. He was like, there's marketplaces, that have existed since the beginning of games that like people can sell assets online, and like this thesis that you can transfer assets out of the game is just like,
they're not meant to. They're prevented from doing so, but they do.
But they do anyways. And there's always been these kind of like secondary markets for in-game assets. And so he kind of came at it from a really highly skeptical point of view. But then he kept on asking the question, like, what can we do? What can we do? And he got really excited about the concept of permadeath, which also happens, in non-crypto games. But, if you build an on-chain character and you train that character through simulations or avatar, and you work and spend time and assets and resources to get this character to participate in a specific game, let's call it like, a death race or something. And then you play a game where if you lose, that character's every stat, every ability that you've developed for that character disappears. Then this, to the point of stakes, like now it's a really high stakes game. And that's something that he felt was novel, that blockchain offered, was kind of this like true, finality, which I think there are other games that are using kind of true death, but it's all, again, it's dependent on this central third party to determine whether it's real or not.
Can I jump into your first point?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, because you said, if you build stuff on chain with assets living on the chain, you cannot avoid speculators.
Yeah.
And I would argue, I agree, for the moment, it's really hard. And my current thinking is that we might be thinking about NFTs in a too much of a skeuomorphic way, where we're using NFTs as if they're physical objects, where you can do with it whatever you want. And so I think game developers should start thinking about NFTs as what they are, which are actually programmable assets, and move away from the way they're designed now, where you're absolutely free to do with it what you want. And so as an example, if you want to pre-sell an NFT for your fans, and in order to help fund, your game development, why don't you sell the NFT, but you design the NFT in such a way that if people want to sell it, well, either they can't be sold, which is the soulbound token that we currently see. But what about you can sell it, but you can only sell it for the price at which you bought it for? That's possible. Like all of that. So we have the possibility to program ownership. And we're currently not using it. We're just saying NFTs exist and that soulbound tokens exist, but there's an infinite amount of possibilities in between, which I think you can, or game makers can use to get, like, to have players rewarded for the things that they want them to do, which is either, hold or use the game. And, they can also use to keep speculators out while benefiting from blockchain technology and the composability and interoperability it has. Yeah, I think that's an interesting point.
Right now, there's actually a game called Sorare that is, the NFTs are being held up probably the best out of any other game out there. And we were talking about this earlier. Why is Sorare's NFTs, the fluctuation much less than all the other NFT games out there? And I think we came to the conclusion that nobody thinks that this is a Web3 company or a crypto company, when in reality, Sorare really is. It's a fantasy soccer company that's on chain, where the NFTs can be bought and sold. But the NFTs have dropped. I think there was an article that came out saying that everything else out there has probably dropped about 80% on the NFT side, but for Sorare, it's only dropped about 20%.
Wow.
On their NFTs. It's different because nobody really sees Sorare as a crypto company or a crypto game.
Mm-hmm. I think if you want to inherit the full financial state of the world, right, by creating an open economy game where you don't have programmable rules, or you loosen the programmable rules that govern its ability to interact with the open economy world. I think if you do that, you have to think about like speculators and exogenous forces as agents in the system. And you can do agent-based simulation. Of course, it gets very complicated because you're inheriting the full financial state of the world. But I think that's a different kind of game, right? I think like the range of what a game is might look very different. I think a lot of games start out as not fun. Like there are programmery games like scripts. Games themselves were like a very niche mail-in, good faith, hopefully it'll give me a tip. Like that was the original sort of, John Romero vision of what games were. And today, of course, it doesn't look like that at all. And we've got, billions of people playing games. I think, there's a lot of room left to go. But the range of like what you can consider a game, fun or not today, I think has expanded dramatically.
Definitely. Guys, we've only got like 5 minutes left.
I realized I'm actually not time capped, so whoever else is
Oh, now it's only Brian now. So
I'm not. I told my wife I'd have dinner with her at 6. I only live 10 minutes away.
Oh,
okay.
Amazing.
All right.
My next thing is not till 6:30, so
This is a great
hot.
conversation. No one's actually had,
But it's really hot in here.
It's very hot in here.
The one thing we haven't
Dehydration.
touched on is the tokenomics of games and how
We
the
wanted
Death
to talk
Star.
about this.
Yeah, I want to talk about this. And one company that both A16 and IBC invests is called Irreverent Labs. That one claims, I mean, I haven't seen it yet because I'm a small investor. They led the round. They took up most of it. So they were talking about they took up most of the left.
So passive aggressive.
I just need to add that. Really.
You can also jiu-jitsu,
They took up all of it. I'll be a little bit. But that company has what they said that they have figured out the tokenomics where without buying anything or buying the token, it could last 100 years.
Big call.
Well, so I don't want to share secrets that aren't mine to share,
Yes.
because Irreverent is not yet launched. They'd been in.
But everyone's talking about them.
Everyone's talking about them.
Everyone's talking about them.
I
Yes,
love that.
I
We
love
can
it.
agree on that. We can agree that that's a great thing. They're very close to an NFT drop. I think one thing that's really interesting about that team specifically, so Rahul is this amazing serial founder. He made Voodoo and had been in the online poker space during the 2010 sort of, regulatory scrutiny era. And so I think he has sort of uniquely inherited that experience and applied sort of his deep sense of what financial incentives do to games and applied that to this game, which is called Mecha Fight Club.
Cockfighting.
Yeah, it's a hilarious game. Like it's like
is it like traditional cockfighting? Because that was just legalized in the Philippines. We can now access it like through the Gcash app.
Yes.
But I was thinking that it would be amazing as a digital game because in the real world, not so sure about it. But
no
like
chickens were harmed in the making.
We gotta get it.
Yeah,
it would be a great game. Like I'd far prefer it if it wasn't real. Yeah.
Thanks.
But I think because he has like applied those things from first principles, like he's not making the same assumptions as other games are, and he's doing radical things. And I think, I mean, you'll soon to see. But yeah, I'll just call out that like, stuff like the minting auction process, pre-mints, like all these things. He's like, we don't necessarily have to do those things. We're talking about programmable digital assets. We can do whatever we want. I think that's really, really exciting.
That's cool.
I mean, you were just saying, like, you can do whatever you want. Like, you were just saying everything's skeuomorphic at the moment. It's like we're sort of copying what's been done before rather than thinking what's possible.
Yeah, I mean, so like a lot of investors, on the VC side, they talk about ZK technology, right? And there's like, I don't know, pattern matching. I consider VCs, we're all like pattern matching engines, oftentimes. But the question I guess I have, and maybe some of you guys know better than I do, probably know better than I do, is like what could something like on-chain privacy enable for gaming? And also, not only the
access and inclusion.
Yes, access, inclusion, right? And also, transaction, I guess, speed, but you can have players. I think one answer is you can simultaneously have players making moves on chain and changing moves on chain, which I guess creates more dynamic games. So, my partner, Eva Wu, would have been much better on this panel. She's been doing a lot of work in the gaming space and specifically really excited about, what being on chain could enable for a game that's beyond NFT ownership or speculation and different, additional economic terms. But ZK is one of them. That's what I wanted to bring up.
To jump into that, sorry to interrupt you. We are working with Matchbox DAO, who are kind of an ecosystem fund accelerator for the stuff happening on Starknet, which is part of Starkware, and they're using ZK rollup technology. And so I was part of their hackathon that they recently did. I was one of the judges. And so, what's being built there is, for example, on-chain Texas Hold'em, so poker, where you have two cards, you know what your cards are, it's happening on-chain, but the other person doesn't know what your cards are, which is really cool, right? Because until ZK technology, that wasn't possible. And so again, this is a skeuomorphic utilization of this new technology, but the ramifications of that and what you can do with it, with on-chain, initially turn-based, slower, more strategic games, I think are incredibly wide. And I think in 3 years we'll look at some games and be like, did we not see this coming? It just makes so much sense, and they're gonna, I think, it's gonna be a slow adoption, right? Because this technology, the further along you are on the cutting edge part, the longer it takes for the majority of people to adopt it. For example, Dark Forest is played by a few thousand absolute nerds, right? So I think this stuff is ways out for mass adoption, but it is really exciting technology.
I mean, one thing I think is maybe a little less skeuomorphic, like in an application of ZKs for games, is the idea of like secret group coordination and more specifically intellectual property. So there's a lot of different games, MMOs specifically, where people coordinate outside of the context of the game, like as a raid, right? As a little squad, and they go into the game and they come in with some plan. right? And this is the same as football. You have all these signals that the other team may not know. It's hard to do if, you know, the full state of the world lives on chain. So say you're in this like Civ type game, like this world building game, and you want to have like, and say it's extensible, that you can program within this game, you can build certain stuff. You can build it in a way that is secret and has like, you know, strict intellectual property. And you can go rent out this, like, I don't know, say you made like a super cool gun, right? You go rent out this gun to other people. They can't copy it. You're now raking money, right? Maybe, maybe, you can license out this super sick house that is like, you know, secret to other architects. Like you can create entirely new businesses using intellectual property in games. And this is also true outside of games, obviously.
Yeah. Are you going to add to that, Brian?
No, I don't understand that stuff. Yeah, still reading about it.
Yeah, I mean,
Really?
I think one thing I would want to add, and I love that you said that, by the way. That's awesome. I'm like, you know, like I was actually just going to say that for any founders and builders that are listening, like our job is to effectively like try to predict where things are going, and then to find people that are actually creating that future. So if you're working on something that is, you know, not what we spoke about so far and is like really compelling and novel, and we don't see it, like, come show us, you know, like that's how we get better and smarter, you know, and learn. So
yeah, and it's nice too,
so
like it's
much
refreshing when people like say
I don't know,
"Actually,
I
I don't know
can't."
that
I mean,
stuff." That's a
ZK
serious thing in
Rock
crypto,
and
like keeping
Stark,
up is
that's
so
all done
hard.
by Herbie, my other partner. So
And I think we all also need to be honest, we're trying to predict the future, but I think we learn most from the people that we see and that talk to us and come explain for like their vision for what they're building.
Yeah.
Because in the end, we're generalists, although we might operate within a niche, right? But if you're a founder and you've like built a certain type of game before, and you see this blockchain and you see what's being done with it, and you're like, hey, that part of blockchain actually would solve a problem that I used to have, why I couldn't develop the game that I actually wanted to make. That is exactly what we're all looking for, I guess, right? It's you coming to us and saying, look, this game, you know, we know it's going to be, or we believe it's going to be successful, and it wouldn't exist if we didn't have this new tech.
Yeah. We should wrap it up because we might melt.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's so hot in here.
I do just want like just a quick closing question, and I'm going to pose it two ways. So like take it how you wish. But you know, we're going into this bear market, which a lot of people are worried about. A lot of people have opted out. You know, the optimists say this is the best time to build. It's really great when the hype is gone. Also, you know, it's kind of a natural filter, I think, for founders and projects, because if people are building in the absolute deep, dark depths of the crypto winter, they're probably pretty committed. So I just want to know from you guys, like, what do you see are the new trends? Because Web3 gaming and metaverse that we're talking about today was obviously something that amazingly took off in the last bull run. I would say 2018 NFTs was still pretty sideline, like it was pretty out there. You had, you know, a very small handful of crazy people who were talking about NFTs, and then fast forward to what was it, like February, March 2020, people sold this $69 million NFT and everyone wanted in. So what's coming next? The two-pronged question is, like, what do you see as the opportunities in terms of the trends that will take off next? But maybe a different way to phrase the same thing is, what are the big challenges that are actually holding this space back? Like if someone came to you and said, I just solved this, you'd be like, shit, I've been waiting for this moment. So big question, but what are you guys seeing like in the next, and I'm talking like relatively short time frame, like the next 18 to 24 months?
That's a lifetime.
well, I know.
Okay, well,
Crypto, yeah.
you can adjust it.
No,
What's a
for
better
sure.
timeline to be thinking about?
No, I mean, I think 18 to 24 months is a great timeline. It's just
Also
you know,
because games take a long time to build.
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, a lot of the games we've invested in are more on like a 4-year time scale. And are you speaking games
I just
specifically?
mean like
Oh,
in the
because
bear
this is a
market,
game-
like if
game
someone came
panel,
to
right?
a crypto winter, like,
Yeah.
you know, when no one else is kind of getting excited about the space, like what are
Yeah.
the things that you expect people are going to be working on? Like if it was NFTs and digital ownership and play to earn in the last bull run, like what is the next bull run going to be characterized by?
Well, so I'll answer a question that you posed, like what's the biggest unlock? I think infrastructure. Like you can't play solitaire without ZKs. And like the most you can do with ZKs in games today is like a 2D grid. and like a dot that indicates where you are on this 2D grid. Like
Cool.
no more.
Very exciting.
And so like, yeah, infrastructure. I mean, there's other answers, but like top of mind and
Do you mean like infrastructure for like privacy and digital identity or interoperability or all
A
of it?
simple one would be like cross-chain metadata,
Mhm.
right? So we have a company that we invested in called ReNFT,
Yeah.
and they're
Yeah.
enabling NFT rentals so that you don't need to actually collateralize your NFT in order for someone to borrow it. Let's say you own something, but you want them to play it in game. They just end up on a registry that's
Yeah,
managed
we
by
definitely
some
need
different nodes.
re-NFT to talk to crypto unicorns right now.
Yeah.
Like-
So ReNFT, it's incredible, but they're working with 4 games, and they're working with right now directly, and they're working with a game that's building on Polygon and a game that's building on Solana. And they keep running into this issue, specifically on Solana right now, but it happens on other chains, where the downtime, the data query layer of crypto, in this particular instance of the graph, sometimes it's other data, calling protocols, but when it's down, their protocol cannot actually call the registry of owners to determine who can use the asset in game. It doesn't work. So then the game doesn't work, right, for those players. So like that's another piece of infrastructure that's super important, just like cross-chain metadata for NFTs.
And this is why I think it's going to go further decentralized, right? Because if you only have a small number of like, node operators who are storing a full database, which is, sort of standard for IPFS, which is standard for sort of like somewhat centralized like infrastructure layers today. When something goes down, which happens all the time in games, like you just won't be able to play. So I think, if we think that, nation states will live on chains in these games, like I think decentralization is sort of a prereq.
So for us, we're looking at a lot of the middle layer stuff. Coming from Web2 world, we see a lot of stuff that are from the Web2 world that they don't have right now in Web3. Some of the stuff that we've been looking at, a lot of stuff is the fintech side, where a lot of the stuff that we're trying to keep track of as a fund, gas fees, all that, it's so hard to track all that stuff.
Yeah,
and we need it.
Yeah.
We need it for audits. We need it for NAV calculations and all that stuff. So we're investing in a lot of stuff that has that's actually providing that. One is Crypto Worth. We found them out looking for exactly this technology, and we found them hidden in Vancouver. 3 founders. And just a bunch of this stuff that we see in Web2 that we feel like the Web3 needs. And then that's what we're going out searching for.
Cool. Okay.
So from my side, so there's kind of 2 questions you asked, like what is still needed, and then what's going to lead into the next bull run. And I find that second question hard to answer because I sat here trying to make the case that the over financialization is a net negative thing in my opinion for games as a whole. And so the problem is that it's the over financialization that catalyzes into these bull runs that are unsustainable by definition. And so it's hard for me to like
brings all those users in.
So in my opinion, almost as someone who wants to see this ecosystem thrive in 10 years, not necessarily in the next 24 months, I think this whole bull and bust cycle is a kind of a 2-sided sword, because it does draw in talent, and there's not a lot of talent that actually is building that gets demotivated and gets out, and it draws a lot of eyeballs and attention. Anyway, so it's hard for me to say. I think when it comes to what is needed, I think currently almost any blockchain game, and especially the ones that I'm interested in, as I said, are for like 1,000 nerds that exist on the planet. And I think building the infrastructure, as Carra said, and the user experience and the UX UI for them, to be able to also enjoy these games. I think that's like, if I could, clap my fingers and make that exist, that's probably what I would go for.
Awesome.
Can I say one thing that I want to exist in the crypto?
Yes.
Is that cool?
Please.
So I've been very kind of like disheartened by the attention economy for the last 5 years, and we've just not landed a better model than ad-based use of the web, and like this idea of like Web3 social and like interacting in a way that isn't driven by, I monetize you by you paying attention, and the way I get you to pay attention is by driving you further to the extremes of whatever psychological state I want you to be in. And I being like an algorithm that's a black box that people, might not necessarily be intentionally doing this. But I really would love to see new economic models around, consumer use of the web, so that it's not only driven by basically monetizing our attention like we're some kind of like cattle.
Yeah, you're not the customer of Instagram. They have some of the biggest sales teams in the world. The customer of Instagram is like ad agencies.
Yeah.
You're the product.
Yeah.
And everyone who's tried Web3 social has failed so far. Like every single attempt, whether it be BitClout or, we invest in the company Idea Markets, they haven't failed, but like they're still trying to find product market fit. And there's just been Roll was another one. And I don't know why they're failing, but like, can we figure out a way to get people to use social or use the web where it's not just these ad companies that are the customer?
Yeah.
And maybe it is that skeuomorphic issue around, we should be thinking of something completely and totally different, as opposed to trying to remodel old things that didn't work just with a Web3 layer on top.
And for the record, this might also be better for developers. So I used to work in the App Store, and the attention economy also applies to games. A bunch of games cross promote in other games, like ads, like you have to wait 5 seconds, you go through the ads, right? Like that became a gaming paradigm that led to, some sort of slot machine ethic type game loops. A lot of indie developers don't like that. And I think the point of Apple Arcade was to try to basically create a venture fund model for incubating indie developers. That unfortunately was not the raging success that Apple wanted it to be. It was a subscription-based service where you have no ads, right? But a lot of indie developers are really discontent with the fact that their artistic license has been pigeonholed by like revenue and competition for attention. So I think it's not all like rainbows and unicorns in developer land. And I think that might be one of the reasons why we're seeing such interest, in developers moving from these big hyper consolidated gaming companies toward, this sort of like this different, more free development space. The design space is huge. Yeah.
It's still a very early stage, I think. And like you were saying too, it just takes years to build a great game and a lot of money, and sometimes the best talent in the world that's been working on this stuff for decades. So I think we're only just starting to see some of those kind of resources flow into this space. So I'm pretty excited to see where it goes. I don't want you guys to die in here. It is like a sauna, but this has just been such a good conversation. If it wasn't so hot, I feel like we could probably just like get super comfy and sit here and chat for hours, but it's been awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. And I hope we can do it all again soon. I'd love to kind of do a where are they now chat. Maybe in like
did they change your opinion? Should we be financializing this after all?
Yeah, we've changed our opinion on that like 3 times. Yes, no.
Thank you everyone for joining. I think this has been like such an epic day.
Thank you.
You want to meet with these guys, find them on Twitter. Sorry, you're about to get a bunch of DMs. But it's been such a cool event, and very excited that we have lots of international guests joining us. So thanks everybody. And until next time.
Ciao.
Bye.
Bye.
Later.
GN.